wanted to welcome all the viewers that are watching us. And I also wanted to say thank you to Natalie for inviting me. And also just explain, how we know each other. And that goes back, I believe, now 15 years since I've attended studies at the PR institution where Natalie was one of the lecturers and also the director. And since then, we always stayed in touch. And our journey is very different in life. We have people that come and go and people that stay. And I think there's a reason that we stayed always connected. I do think that we think alike. We have very similar minds in the way we see the world, purpose, journey, inspiration, mindset, society. And that's why I think it's also one of the reasons that we are here today. And I would like to just mention as well that Natalie is truly an inspiration to me, a mentor, a superpower woman, a business leader, a coach, a lecturer, a mother, everything you can imagine. And I'm really honored to be here with you as well, Natalie. And also I would like to congratulate you and Navdihni and inspire me to launch this series of webinars, which is not really to now to set the tone too official, but to just bond with people, because I think we all find ourselves in a strange situation where we are stressed, we are in panic, we are in a paralysis mode. And this is just a way for us to have a conversation, to bond between one another. We had a first meeting on Monday, our first webinar, where we had some good bonding session as well. And then the webinars will continue as well with the Slovenian version from Friday onwards. And I think that all of this individual webinars will give you an opportunity to just find whatever you need, whether that's whatever emotions you need, if you need inspiration, motivation, support, or anything. And I do recommend you to join other webinars as well. We decided to do it in English because there's also some international network joining tonight, this evening. And I would like to welcome those viewers as well, I believe from South Africa and from the Netherlands and so on. And so thank you for having me. Once again, good evening, and I'm ready for your questions.
Okay, so let's start with the questions. So how is life now in your country? Your country is on lockdown. So can you compare the life now and from pre-corona, let's say the era from pre-corona? What kind of restrictions have been implemented to contain the situation?
Yeah, so for me, more than a lockdown, this is a bulk up because I've been gaining weight already. And I'll explain you why, because the restrictions in South Africa are different than the ones in Europe. And let me start from the beginning, actually. We started the year, January 2020, we were electrified, we were ready for the year, we all thought this is gonna be the year. And in fact, this is a special year, we will definitely remember it, but not for the reasons that we wanted to, really. So we saw that this domino effect was coming, that it would hit us sooner or later. And somehow, eventually it started. I believe the first case was identified at the same day as it happened in Slovenia. So we are in a similar time frame. It happened at the same time. We stand now on 2,300 cases registered of people infected and 27 deaths. Now the lockdown is quite restrictive. They've taken restrictive measures because we know that as a South Africa, we have our own internal problems within the country, and we needed to really contain this pandemic. So the restrictions are firm, but I actually agree with them. We are not allowed to go for a jog. We are not allowed to go to walk our dogs out. And we are only allowed to go out to buy the necessities, the essentials, to go to the pharmacy, to see a doctor, and to buy whatever groceries we need. That is all. If the police finds you probably on a highway, if you don't have a permit, they don't even discuss with you. They will probably just take you to the nice place, to jail. So that's why I'm gaining weight. Now you understand. We have to work with what we have in our environment and try to make sure that we improve our wellness, or at least that we keep our wellness. But it's definitely a different lockdown. But once again, I agree. This is not a political webinar, but I would like to spend just a couple of seconds in saying that I believe that the South African government has really been efficient and professional in treating this pandemic. Of course, they had some more time to elaborate and think about what was happening around the world. And they just had to really act quickly. And what I what I'm pleasantly even surprised is that they're not hiding in offices. I see, for instance, the premier of our region constantly being out on the lookout, creating awareness for the people, particularly to where the most vulnerable live, the poor, where there's more poverty. So they're actually really activated something special within the country. They're really putting effort to generate awareness about the virus. And here I can talk about social distance just quickly. In a third world country where there's a lot of poverty as well, it's not so easy to talk about social distance, you know, because especially in informal settlements where there's a lot of people living in one confined small area, perhaps you have 5 to 6 people living in one space. How can you apply any social distance? It's not really easy. So that's one factor to consider. The second one, we've seen how people all around the globe, they have stormed into shopping centers and stock up on groceries. But if you live in poverty, you can barely survive on a day-to-day basis. How can you really stock up for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks? And so here I'm happy to see that our government, the various provinces, they're organizing the so-called food banks, where they're setting up food and supplies for the poor ones, and they're actually distributing so that it can last for 3 weeks or for a month, and that people can be taken care of. Not only that, they're distributing masks, they're distributing soaps to the poor communities as well. And what additionally I was surprised is that wealthy South Africans and lots of companies from the private sector, they have really joined this struggle, and they have pledged, they have donated funds to help this particular situation. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see that they have really put an effort. So how did life change? It changed totally. Like, for instance, same for you in Europe probably, because to see, I mean, in Johannesburg, a city that never sleeps, yet at the moment it's all dormant, and it's just very strange, you know, that such economy, we're still 57 million of population in South Africa, and everything is just at a standstill. But you know, we try to still be positive that we can contain the situation and that we can get out of it in a good way, hopefully.
Thank you for the insights today. Let's go to more pleasant, let's say more pleasant content. You have traveled the world actually and have seen incredible places. If I only refer to your Facebook photos. But what are your most precious moments or the events you have witnessed or have been part of?
Yeah, traveling, definitely. I've been to many places, and I still commute between Europe and South Africa. Well, I have been commuting for the past 2 years, but to just quickly bring a few memories, just perhaps to take you on a virtual journey, because nobody can travel, and probably we will not be able to travel for a very long time, or at least for the next year, I would say, until the situation calms down. Just to share some moments with you. I think most of the moments that I cherish are the ones connected with people, really. So connections with people and perhaps even nature. For instance, I loved my experience in Egypt, where I was set with a team of other colleagues to explore Egypt and to set up new land tours for an Australian operator. And it gave me really an insight through the history of Egypt. And most importantly, we were really able to travel through most of the country, and not in resorts, but literally, you know, to explore Egypt from Alexandria to Cairo to Luxor and Aswan, cruises on the Nile, and just setting up the whole travel experience for our guests. And one instance that I really remember is going on a hot air balloon, because we were assessing the options and the things that our guests could do, hot air ballooning above the Valley of the Kings in Luxor. And I just remember 5 in the morning on a sunrise. So the sun was just rising, and imagine just being on a hot air balloon and flying above, just peacefulness and serenity. And this is just one of the moments, of course, with Egypt. If I go to another destination quickly, just to keep us traveling more, I could go to South America, to Brazil. This is now long ago, but it's still something that I remember so vividly, because we were in Brazil over the Christmas festivities, and with colleagues once again and friends, we decided to go out and do shopping for whatever we needed. And there we are in this mall, filled with people, with local people just buying, getting ready for Christmas and New Year. There was long queues waiting for people to pay, and I just remember this scene where there was very loud music with national Brazilian songs, samba, a lot of rhythm, and people would just dance in the queue and nobody would complain that they're waiting. And I know that this is part of their upbringing, that their culture, you know, they just have it in them. But to me, coming from Europe, I didn't experience that. You probably would agree with me if someone would find me doing that in a store in Koper, they will say, there we go, he's crazy, he needs to be locked up. So that's one really something that I remember. And it's again the spontaneous joyfulness of people, you know, that's really special. I can then continue with my traveling in the Maldives, and again, not the resorts area, but mostly the fishermen islands, where the people in the Maldives just live not in poverty, but in simplicity. And just I remember the nature, the vegetation, the breeze, the ocean, and they live simple lives, but it's a beautiful life, honestly. And to conclude this first part, then I've landed in South Africa. Beautiful, of course, just going into the wild whenever I feel like I need to just have a mindfulness, you know, situation. I would just venture with friends in the wild, and just to be in the silence where you hear nothing but the wild of the tigers and the lions and all the wildlife that South Africa offers. Is just, they're all incredible moments, you know. Important was definitely being part of the World Cup here, because that's the year that I actually landed in South Africa. And I was part of, as well, assisting with the Slovenian tourism organization and the national football team with various events. So I took part of that celebration in South Africa, and I was pleasantly surprised once again, because worldwide media were watching whether South Africa would be delivering this event, you know, being a third world country. And yet they managed to deliver and over deliver, and everything went well, and it remained as a great experience for the country. In that same year, I've also went to see our proud hero, Slovenian Dejan Zavec, who I cheered at his main event, where he became a champion, a worldwide champion on that particular day in Johannesburg. And I'm saying hello to Dejan if he's watching. But the final moment that I would like to share with you, perhaps to conclude this part of question, is you know, there's different connections when you travel. You find landscapes that you love, you find emotions, you find adrenaline, you find excitement. But the one that I mostly remember was when Ndaba Mandela, the grandson, one of the grandsons of Nelson Mandela, invited me to their home here in Johannesburg, not far from where I stay, 15 minutes drive. And this was after the passing of Nelson Mandela. But nevertheless, to me, it was very important, because from someone from a small village close to Koper, Slovenia, to be invited to the home of such revolutionary man, a man that has freed the country, a man that has sacrificed his life for, he set his soul on a mission to save his people, and a humanitarian, a global icon. And I was able to touch and leave that legacy, you know, to be part of it. I think it gave me an energy that I can't explain. And whenever I think about it, it still flows in me. And I hope that this energy is flowing now also through the screens to you, because it's a home where he spent most of the time while he still lived in Johannesburg. And for you just to have an idea, Oprah, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, African royalties and dignitaries have visited him in that home. And to me, that was just so special that I'm part of something like that, because he's also one of my icons, you know, as a way of living, as setting yourself on a mission. And this is one of the moments that I still cherish. And yeah, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity, of course.
This was really inspiring, and I got these goosebumps. I think that other participants got them as well. But as you mentioned, you are predominantly involved in the hospitality, travel, event sector. How do you see this year for this sector, and what changes will this new reality bring to the industry going forward? What are the most affected segments of this industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, you know, 4 years ago, I had a mind shift. Hospitality has always been my choice, my purpose, but as we spoke days ago, purpose can change for many people, right? You grow through your journey and you want different things. And I've always had this inquisitive nature. So I knew that I wanted to that I wanted to do different things as well. But also when thinking about hospitality, two things that I've always been thinking is vulnerability of what can happen out of your control, and second, presence, because no matter what you do in our industry, you need to be there. If you're not there, it's a present. It's not all working online. But to give you just a rundown of what I think this year is going to be for the travel hospitality industry. I think, to be honest, and it's not to be negative, but just to really be realistic, I think we're having a very dark year ahead. And I can give you a couple of reasons for it. The one reason is that long distance travel, it's a no-no. It will just not be happening because I'm sure you have a family, you're a family of 5, you will not be going to risk and traveling far and wide and in crowded places in order for you to risk to get an infection, to get the virus, or something like that. I think that long travel will just not be possible. We might be traveling within our close vicinity, wherever we live. So it's good because then we can explore our country. But the second point that I'm also worried about is buying power. I see a lot on social media lately, everybody's promoting, now we're going to buy it local, we're going to invest local, we're going to travel local. That's all great. We should have always been doing that. We should always support local. But my worry is that people were hit very hard. Not everybody. As in every crisis, there's also companies that are thriving. But many people are at the moment hit and they don't know how they're going to survive for the next 6 months. They need to budget first how to survive. How are they going to pay bonds for the houses, for the cars, for whatever expenditure that they need to have, private schooling, whatever. So traveling this year might not even be an option for many people. They might say, well, wait a minute. This year, we need to postpone it. We're going to travel next year because it's not in budget. But if they decide to travel, I believe it's going to be more local, close by, perhaps not for a long period, but shorter. Probably they will not choose bigger hotels, but they will probably want to choose smaller boutique hotels or boutique guest houses as well. And another segment that is popular here in South Africa in the past 5 years, it's service departments. That could be an idea because people, again, would prefer not to go where there's a lot of gathering of people, to share dining rooms, to share restaurants, and they might perhaps select these particular options of service departments. That could be a possibility. I'm sure that the hotels will become innovative and they will find ways how to promote social distance even while having their hotels open. But I just see a lot of, it's all about the mind. Now we are all in that situation. Where do I go? Will I get infected? I need to be careful. What should I do? So I just see a very tough year for us ahead of us. And I just want to move to 2 more segments. One is the cruising. I will not touch much the ocean cruising because I'm not part of that. I had very short experience with that. But I ventured into the river cruising, which I still do a few programs per year in Europe. And why I want to tell you this is because we talk about hospitality, and I'm very sad for how it will affect all the people that live in our industry. So from actually hotels to the river cruises to people that work in all of these segments of the industry. But my worry is also for all the people that the river cruising industry supports, the supply chain that comes with it. To give you just an instance, when I lead a program in Europe of river cruising, for instance, cruises between Amsterdam and Budapest, we stop in wonderful cities from Vienna to Budapest to Cologne to Amsterdam and other cities in Austria and Germany. And in every city, we support local guides, local coach drivers, guides that provide bicycle or cycling tours for our guests. We take people to museums, to palaces. We take people to Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna. We take our guests to a 17th century building in city center Vienna, which is Palais Liechtenstein, where we treat them to a private classical concert. And all of this segment is now gone. So all of these people that are part of our supply chain will not be able to provide these services this year. And a few days ago, I was on the phone with one of our guides in Germany. She's the official guide for Rothenburg, which is the best preserved medieval town in Germany. And she was telling me how stressed she is because she will not have any tours this year due to the river cruising being canceled, of course, because that's what it will happen. It will be canceled for this year. I don't see anyway, how could we reignite this year? Because people will just not choose to go where we know there could be more trouble. And the final segment that I could touch on is the famous online travel platforms like Booking.com and Expedia. We know how that works. Nowadays, nobody's going to book a car rental or a hotel or a flight. So all of this system is slowly collapsing, and a lot of people will remain without jobs, without an income. It's also an opportunity for many people, for many talented people to think new, to think different, and perhaps new startups will develop. But in the meantime, I think it's just a very sad year ahead for us in our specific industry, because as opposed to many other people, we can't just switch on the computer and work online. There's some industry that is just a bit more difficult to have that option. Mm-hmm. And I hope I summarized a little bit my thoughts on this.
Yeah, you gave us the big picture, actually. Yes, thank you. So what do you think these micro, smaller and large businesses should do to minimize the impact in the future? Should something like that happen again? So how should we, if we can prepare, how should we be prepared, or how should we prepare for situations like that or similar?
I think I've been thinking a lot lately about it, and I think that we need to start thinking differently and a bit more creative. I think it's a defining moment in our lives where we see that we need to change something in the way we do business. Like, for instance, I've been thinking, imagine, let's just try to think creative. If, let's say, we are in year 2025, Corona did not happen, but the government tells you that there's a virus coming, there's a pandemic coming in 6 months, and we need to be ready because we will go on a lockdown. So I would tell you, try to think creatively. What could you do now to restructure your business? So maybe not restructure, but transform. I think the key words are here: transform, diversify. How could you already start thinking now, if we have a problem 6 months down the line, how could you restructure? So think of, if you have a service or if you have a product, think of what else could you bring, what else could you do with it, that it could sustain you also in a time of crisis. But fair enough, if you tell me today, unfortunately, I have a business or a service or a product that I can't transform, then I would tell you, then start thinking, outside of the box. Try to bring a new component to your business. Try to see how you could package your knowledge and start thinking differently and create a new revenue stream that could last you in the bad times, if it happens again. Because who tells us that this will not happen again in 3, 4, 5 years from now? So I think we should all start thinking differently. And maybe the word that I could use here is social entrepreneurship. This is, everybody's talking about it. And here it's, again, thinking maybe between smaller and bigger businesses. Try to appoint and allocate a team within your organization and think social, think environmental. As Richard Branson would say, try to identify what is the problem and try to find a solution and be innovative and creative about it. And if you see, even in this crisis, there's still opportunities. Not only Virgin and Tesla has started to manufacture ventilators, but now there's Slovenia. In Slovenia, they're manufacturing them, in South Africa, in every country, which means that every crisis presents new opportunities. And it's not just about making money in the crisis, it's just about thinking differently. Change your whole production and start fresh, because in my opinion is that we really will need to start in a different way, and some jobs or businesses might become obsolete. We will need to restart from zero. So I think that this situation, when it brings us to a survival mode, I think it gives us even more fresh ideas and creativeness to think differently and to try and do new things.
You were talking about these new ideas. This is something like Red Monkey. This is a concept that a colleague of mine has developed I think in Belgium and in the Netherlands. These are countries that always try to thrive through different approaches, which I find exciting. Actually, the smaller you are, the easier it is for you. So if Slovenia is small, perhaps we have a better chance to develop different approaches and different kind of stuff.
Yes.
But can you be, we all know that we have to think differently. Yeah, we know that we have to approach to our promotion or to our services or our products differently. But how? You know, can you give us an example for that? How do we approach differently? How do we develop things differently? How do we navigate through this situation? How can we be part of the responsible future? So this social entrepreneurship or social innovations, how do we do it?
It's again trying to tap in all of your knowledge and experience that you've gathered over the years and see what you can do to make things differently. I decided to diversify on my own because I knew I was really scared of the vulnerability of my industry, because you are subjected to natural disasters like tsunamis and earthquakes and flooding. And you are also subjected to terrorism. Although this is more localized, you know, nothing happened on a scale like with this coronavirus. But my idea of diversifying was exactly because my industry takes a lot of your presence and long hours. So I wanted to start thinking differently and outside of the box from my industry, but think what other revenue streams I could do that could save me for the future, so that in case that I'm not physically able to work, that I can have some additional income. And, you know, some people would call it wealth creation. Some people would just call it different revenue streams, but it does not necessarily need to be from your own scope, what you do, but perhaps try to be innovative and think differently. If there's something that you wanted to do when you were a child and now it could save the world, then try to apply it, because we can't really work on the same systems. Unfortunately, the world is filled with too many of the same products. And that's why people that start to innovate, even in this crisis, like generating ventilators or whatever it's needed for the healthcare system, then it knows that this is something that will always be needed, because health, we all need to be healthy. We will all need to be treated in hospitals. So think whatever you could do as well to be part of this. And that's again the social, to something that can make a difference in people's life, not just a product that will be placed on the table, but mostly something that can make a difference, you know, that solves a problem, basically.
So what are your points of view on how we have lived so far in our societies? Do you really believe that the society, so the people within society will change? Will we change?
I think it's a tricky question. If I go individually to answer, I think at the moment, first of all, what I would, as a suggestion to people that are in a stressful situation, you know, in every crisis, there's people that are still thriving, there's people that are doing very bad, there's people that are poor, and there's people that are just in a middle level and they don't know where to go. I think what I would say is that even if you're in a very bad situation, first of all, try to ask for help. Because there's many people that cannot internalize what is happening and they cannot do it on their own. Sometimes the support is needed from the outside. If that support comes from your mother, from your father, from your partner, then try to do it. Ask for help. We should try to get rid of bad habits of too much spending. And here I go again of society, you know. I think what happened in this society is that we were a lot focused on what is on the outside more than it is on the inside. So it's all about achieving, having, accumulating, buying, possessing, building. But now I think we should go back to more about being and giving. Instead of all the outside world, we should more work on the inside world. If I may mention just a quote here, and I hope I will quote the right person. I believe it was an Islamic leader, who said that detachment is not that you should own nothing, but detachment is that nothing should own you. So I think we should try to live in this society, knowing that we accept everything that the society has to offer, but that we don't let it overwhelm us, that we don't let it consume us, that we try to really be stronger than that. And that's one point. Second point, I think that people should really, as you asked me the question, will people change? I don't know. I think that every crisis brings new people again. There's people that will continue with their own old habits and old patterns. But I believe that also a crisis brings a lot of new people that will definitely be awakened finally, and they will realize that the way we have been living until now is just not sustainable anymore, and something will change. And what else I would like to perhaps recommend our viewers as well, if you are in a particular moment where you're really, that it's a really tough situation for you, you don't know how to move around it, I would just say that trust me, you're not the only one. I've been reading for days articles, and not even the most renowned economists know exactly what is awaiting for us. All they can tell us is that there's probably going to be a big recession. And I think try to ask for help if you need help. And there's another word that hit me a few days ago, and that was rock bottom. And I thought of, when we hit rock bottom, and when we know that there's nowhere else you can go from there, right? But slowly but surely you can start rising up again. And it made me think about my experience in life and how many times I have hit rock bottom. Perhaps people think, oh, he's been traveling in Egypt, the Maldives, South America, South Africa, but I had my fair share of rock bottom situations. And I'm not sure if you have heard also the quote from J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. She said that rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And I think that this is also an opportunity for us to rebuild these foundations that maybe are demolished, maybe they were not even stronger at all. But I think that, as I said, there's always in every crisis, there's definitely a part of the population that will finally awaken. And I think that we should start living in a different way.
Mm. You have mentioned a few different approaches to life. The philosophy, it's also called Ubuntu. And I had the opportunity to scroll through your book. I haven't read it yet thoroughly, but I'm looking forward to it. Can you a bit explain how do you recognize the presence of Ubuntu? What is that? Is this some sort of philosophy? And not the rock bottom, I would say, but is this the foundation that we can build our lives upon in the future?
Yes, yeah, I think you explained it correctly. And thank you, by the way. You're the first one that received my book, so I hope you are enjoying it so far.
Yes.
So to go back to Ubuntu, I get acquainted with this philosophy really mostly when I arrived to South Africa, and because of Nelson Mandela's legacy once again, and because he was preaching more about this philosophy. So I really got interested in knowing more about this particular philosophy. And it's really simple. As I put it down in the article that I wrote for Navdihni for Inspire Me, it's really about humanity, togetherness, oneness. Ubuntu, it's this universal bond that we all share that connects us. Ubuntu, it's not about good words and good intentions. Ubuntu, it's all about good actions. And Ubuntu, it's also living for the greater good of your community. And this is not just your family, your immediate partner, but for the greater good of the community. And to give you an example, I just want to quickly summarize some of the pillars that somehow support Ubuntu. And I will just name 4 tonight. The first pillar is caring for the people in your community for the greater good again, caring in a way that you share their sorrows and that you share their victories, that you live with their successes and that you also live with their failures, and that you are somehow their backbone, their support structure. The second one is sharing without expecting anything in return. The third one is empathy and humility, which is, again, try to put yourself into an emotional situation of another person and listen and be of help. And the final pillar for tonight is respect in Ubuntu. And respect, it's also for the broader community. Respect for the elders, first of all, respect for the children, respect for the environment, and respect for all living creatures. And to just show you how I have interpreted Ubuntu in the last couple of weeks, with everything that was happening in around the world with the coronavirus, all the traces of Ubuntu were very seen in this crisis. So if I talk about sharing, it transpired in the way people were sharing goods between one another, between people volunteering, assisting the healthcare system, neighbors finally talking more to each other and assisting each other. And this is somehow the sharing part, the caring, again, caring for other people. Empathy and humility is humility for the people that have been struggling in this situation, people that have been passing away, doctors that have been passing away as well. And also the sharing and caring, you could see it probably with people coming out on the balconies by singing, by dancing, by applauding the healthcare system, the frontline workers. And the final one, which is respect, again, even that could be seen in this particular situation of the coronavirus, because respect for the elders, for the kids, for the environment, respect for everybody, so that we can isolate and we can fight this pandemic together so that it finally leaves us alone. So that's somehow Ubuntu, and I think we should all apply it in our daily life. I think it's a must do from now on, because this is what has been really missing, not just in times of crisis. I hope that from now on neighbors will talk to each other more, will help to each other more. And maybe this will make us realize that we were more disconnected than we were ever before. Because, for instance, I read around the news that how many more home violence is happening at the moment, because I believe that we all lost track on living together. Because let's face it, the society that pushes you to work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, let's not count the traffic in Johannesburg, where I have dear friends spending 2 hours in the morning to go to work and 2 hours in the afternoon. And that's great. Motivational gurus will tell me, learn a language, listen to CDs, but you can only do that so much. You know, I would also like to use that time to rather go out for a hike or for a jog. Yep. So a society that has really pushed us to our limits. And let's face it, how many families really spend enough quality time together? If you work, I'm talking about Johannesburg now, not Ljubljana, but if families meet only at 7 in the evening just for dinner, and then everybody goes to bed, and that's 5 days a week, how can you make a family? How can you create real bonds in one day? So what is happening now? Of course, nobody can live together anymore because nobody spends enough time together. Most people, I would say, you know, around the world. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying that I see people struggling because we lost the touch to really spend many hours together. So we need to somehow find ways of not to kill each other in this moment with this isolation. But anyway, I hope I'm not going too philosophical in this.
No, thank you. Thank you for your opinions and points of views. Are there any final thoughts for today's participants, for us, that we are looking and hearing and feeling what you've been conducting through your words? So any final thoughts perhaps for us?
For me, sorry.
For me.
Yeah. Final thoughts for me. Well, first of all, let's try to reconnect. Let's try to live better than we've lived until now. The people that have awakened anyway, they're already happy, they're on a mission. The ones that are in a stressful situation, try to find strength, ask for support. You have an incredible team already with Navdihni, Inspire Me, of people that will be creating additional free webinars and seminars and meetings so that they can give you support. And no matter what you're looking for, once again, support, mentorship, guidance, then try to follow the webinars, because each webinar could give you some inspiration or motivation or whatever you might be looking for. Sometimes it's even just good for you to evade from your isolation and just connect with people that share their experiences and their values and their situation and their perception about what's happening around the world. And I wish you, of course, all the best. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Just to give the opportunity to chat a bit, are there perhaps any questions for today? You can write them in the chat box. You have it under those beautiful pictures of me and Tadej. So there is a chat box. You can write your questions there if there are some. Otherwise, I would provoke Tadej, let's say, what will you change after this Corona era? What will be the first thing that you will do when this lockdown will be demolished? Or okay, we have one question for you today. Do you okay, there is not the whole question is not written, so I will wait a bit for Monica to...
Yeah, I couldn't see it also.
Okay, so we will wait for Monica to write it down. So what will be the first thing that you will do, and what will you change?
I've actually changed already. As I said, 4 years ago when I had my shift, about not liking anyway the way society was pushing my limits. I decided to change the way I would be working, the way I would be living. So for me, Corona will not change at the moment how I feel. I've been feeling like this about society and about thinking differently. Be prepared for the unexpected, expect the unexpectable, and to try to be prepared and versatile and to diversify and to just have a different lookout on life, and that nothing is ever eternal, that things change in society and in life, and that we need to be prepared because nobody assures us that in 2 years from here, another pandemic will happen. So I think we should all try to really invest. I think what I would say, I notice in life, especially Europe, I notice that there's a lot of people that have free education, right? In South Africa, this is not the case, not for everybody. But nonetheless, I see many people educated in the First World War and in the Third World, but I don't see happier people in the First World compared to the Third World. So what is wrong? There must be something. This is all about the mindset, because it's not really how much you can achieve. It's really that you are fine inside. And I'll give you a final example. I have, she's an acquaintance. She's not a friend, a good friend or a best friend. She's an acquaintance of mine. And she was telling me, she's a very accomplished, wealthy person, family, kids, the perfect settled life. Nothing is missing. Yet she needs to see, for instance, a psychiatrist on a downside because she cannot cope with everything that is happening in her life. And it made me think a little bit. I said, but how is that possible that we can gain 5 degrees, 5 universities in our lifetime, but we cannot deal with our emotions? So why don't people rather leave a university degree away and focus on rather more on emotional intelligence? Because what did you understand if you live a fulfilled, successful on the outside life, but then you need support from a psychiatrist to sort out your internal demons, then to me, you haven't really grown. You can have 5 more degrees from any other educational system, but if you're not dealing with your internal demons, then nothing will really help you. So it's really maybe perhaps to invest more on the inside on emotional intelligence, because we have advanced technologically, but I think that emotionally we are still very backwards. We struggle to communicate, we struggle to share, we struggle to talk. And I think that maybe is the one thing that we should all do more. And that's why it prompted me to also write my book, because I wanted to share what I think about the mindset, that how we've been living in an inherited mindset for a very long time. And although I'm the first one that say that I respect traditions, history, our ancestors and what they have done, that does not mean that all the inherited mind thinking should stay forever the same, because we have advanced not only technologically, but we need more for ourselves. And that's what we should do for the future. And then I'm going too philosophical again.
I couldn't agree more. We have 2 questions. Tadej, do you consider returning to Slovenia after the Corona era will be over?
Yes, as you know, I was supposed to travel. We were supposed to meet in Portrunik, if you remember, Natalie. But
yeah, but I'm only asking the question from Monica. She doesn't know that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, no. I plan to. My parents live in Koper, so I want to visit my family after you have also been on a lockdown, and I definitely want to come and for a few weeks and see my family and perhaps meet with the team at Navdihni. So I definitely want to come.
Okay, but not to move again back to Slovenia.
No. I accepted my life, that I am settled in traveling. I don't need to settle in one place. I accepted my life that my settling down could be perhaps living in different continents. And for the past 10 years, that has been between Europe and South Africa. And I'm perfectly united in this. I love it. For me, traveling, it's not a problem. I actually still love it. And I think I will stay between the 2 continents. I don't know why, but let me maybe explain you before we end the webinar for tonight. They say that South Africa is the cradle of humankind, right? Mm-hmm. And perhaps not everybody, but I particularly felt this good energy and in the country. And maybe it is true. Maybe it is true that we all come from here. They still call it the motherland. Mm-hmm. So if that's true, maybe this is the energy that I feel from Africa and from Nelson Mandela and Ubuntu, and I'm fine with it. This energy just gives me such power that I'm fine to be between the two continents and be perfectly fine being that way.
Mm-hmm. Then we have some thank you notes from Amadea. It was a wonderful meetup. Thank you for all those moments, positive thoughts, inspiration, support, pieces of advices and thoughts. Stay healthy and all the best for me. This was Amadea. And then Mojca. Tadej, thank you very much. I do share your feelings. Thank you for your contribution and inspirational speech. And yes, to the mindset, to the change of the mindset. Then from your friend from South Africa, Cvikl Coco. Good evening, Natalie and Tadej. Thank you, Tadej, for the invitation. And from Katja, Tadej, thank you for your thoughts. And it is time for people to switch our internal programs by Katja. And then for Monica, thank you for sharing this with all of us. It was great. When then this is when the book is in Slovenian, she wants to know about it and she wants to know how to buy it. So Monica, thank you for this. Today I can't express my gratitude enough, so thank you very much. I'm very grateful for everything. Namaste. And we have some from Simona, thank you. I'm not so good in foreign languages. I enjoyed it though very much. From Jeanette from Netherlands, thank you very much. From Rok, from Kamnik, thank you. It was very interesting and inspiring. So we will make sure that Slovenian translation will be available as subtitles. And we will publish this, it's not a webinar, it's actually a virtual meetup, I would call it. So yes. You will be able to rehearse what you have learned and to implement it in your life. Thank you very much to all of you and see you in 2 days, I hope. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.